What if desire isn't a riddle you solve with a single clever answer, but a language you've been hearing all your life, and only now are starting to understand? What if the question, "What do women really want?" becomes useful only when you stop demanding clean, simple stories and start listening to how biology, culture, and character sing over one another, sometimes in harmony, sometimes off-key? Imagine trying on a lens that is braver than politeness and kinder than cynicism. A lens that lets you watch attraction working in real time without turning people into cartoons. That's the invitation. And yes, we'll borrow the ice-cold clarity of Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who delighted in taking romance apart to see what gears spun underneath. But we won't stop there. We'll hold his austerity in one hand and our lived nuance in the other, then walk forward with both. Schopenhauer's claim is as stark as a winter sky. What we call love might be nature's clever instrument. The species wants tomorrow. Your chest calls it destiny. He gives that force a name. The will, blind, relentless, and utterly uninterested in your florid vows. You fall, you ache, you script confessions. Meanwhile, the oldest program on Earth quietly checks a short list. Survival, health, the viability of children who don't yet exist. Is that all love is? No. But ignore that layer, and you miss why certain people pull us with the gravity of a small moon, while others, however kind, do not. The harshness of his idea is also its power. It explains why stated preferences so often lose to lived patterns. It explains why the friend who swears kindness is her top trait still lights up for the person whose life is in motion, whose edges feel like promise, whose presence hints not only at comfort but at a future with contour. Here's the key distinction. A model isn't a verdict. Women always choose X is neither intelligent nor true. People are plural. Values breathe. What pulls us at 20 might bore us at 30. Trauma teaches its own lessons. Healing teaches different ones. Still, patterns matter because they whisper about the hidden negotiations desire conducts under the surface. Risk versus safety, novelty versus stability, presence versus potential. Schopenhauer was blunt about it. Women, who historically shouldered heavier reproductive stakes, evolved fine-tuned radar for protection, provision, and strength broadly defined. The capacity to keep chaos out. We can debate how much of that is biology and how much is culture. The honest answer is that these strands are braided tight. What matters is that you can see the braid operating even when no one is naming it aloud. Step into the modern bazaar of attention. Endless feeds, grown-up playgrounds, glossy advice. You'll hear 1,000 terms for the same quiet calculus. Standards, green flags, non-negotiables, high value, stripped of jargon. The magnetic field is familiar. The body is drawn to aliveness. The nervous system longs for safety. The imagination wants a story. Aliveness is energy, health, vitality, the signal that a person is awake to their own life. Safety is reliability, emotional regulation, boundaries you can lean against, resources not just of money but of steadiness. Story is meaning, the felt sense that a life alongside this person will be richer, truer, less lonely. Different people weight those three differently at different times. Desire, though, is almost always solving for that triangle. Whether or not you're consciously aware, this is where status becomes a seductive decoy. The algorithm sells status like a miracle vitamin. But status is loud and fragile. Integrity is quiet and durable. One can be rented for a weekend. The other is carved over years. A person whose word does not wobble, who tells the truth when lying would be easier, who recovers after losing. Desire recognizes this as rare, and while glossy displays can get attention, it's the deeper signals that hold attention once real life enters the chat. Missed flights, sick parents, bad quarters at work, the slow friction of habits. Attraction may open the door. Character decides whether anyone wants to stay. When people mock gold diggers, they often aim at a straw figure. Schopenhauer would say the less charged version. Selection for stability is not greed, it's survival logic. That logic can be exploited by anyone using intimacy as a transaction, and exploitation merits no defense. But the logic itself, choosing competence, consistency, and momentum, is the same logic you use when you pick a pilot, a surgeon, a business partner. What looks like calculating from the outside can feel like exhale from the inside. Finally, a person whose daily life won't become your private crisis. That's not shallow, that's sane. What's shallow is mistaking rented prestige for real stewardship. Desire tends to learn the difference the hard way. Then there's promiscuity, variety, novelty, the carousel. Critics claim it shatters the idea of careful selection. Schopenhauer shrugs and calls it a different strategy. Modern life has decoupled intimacy from reproduction. The will keeps humming under the new lyrics. Folle doom. People seek variety for different reasons. Power, curiosity, validation, pleasure, freedom that previous generations couldn't safely explore. None of that excuses deceit. Ethics don't evaporate just because consent is fashionable to say. The point is honesty. Honest agreements, honest risk-taking, honest stops when the body says no. The only immorality is the kind that uses other people as props in your private play, a behavior not owned by any one gender. Nature may push, you still steer. What about innocence? The romantic heart, the trusting soul, the person who keeps falling for sharp edges while insisting she's just unlucky. Schopenhauer saw dissimulation, masks worn to extract protection or avoid accountability. Modern psychology sees something more tender and more sobering. Attachment patterns and nervous systems wired by early experience. Chaos can feel like chemistry if chaos once felt like home. Calm can feel flat until your body relearns what safety is. The point isn't to sneer at innocence or to pretend it's always strategic. The point is to meet it with both boundaries and compassion. You're not a puppet of the will, you are an author who can revise. Seeing the script is how you edit the ending. Schopenhauer strips love to machinery. Life puts the ribbon back on and gives it a moral dimension. Maybe attraction begins as a lure toward tomorrow. But people can make of it something that transcends its origin. Care, fidelity, the art of keeping small promises across big weather. Think of love less as magic and more as craft. Magic can spark, craft sustains. Magic is accidental. Craft is chosen repeatedly when it's not exciting to choose. When a spark meets a craftsperson, you get a fire that warms a home instead of burning it down. How do you use any of this without turning relationships into a game? Start with the mirror, not with a manifesto. If your life radiates uncertainty, don't demand that attraction overlook the signal. Put your house in order, literally and metaphorically. Build rhythms that keep you honest. Work you respect, friendships that persist, health that survives winter, playful hobbies that put you in flow, a budget that aligns with your values. These aren't props to bait a partner. They are proof to yourself that you can steer. Desire hears that music. We are drawn to people whose lives already have a beat. If you're a man listening, you've heard the common prescriptions. Get your money right, lift, be high value. Let's translate the cliché into substance. Money is a proxy for responsibility and optionality. Build the underlying traits, not just the number. Live to become trustworthy to yourself, not to buy intimidation. High value is a meme. High contribution is a life. Ask what improves for the people who spend time near you. Do they feel calmer, braver, more honest? Does your presence make a room safer to tell the truth in? That's value. Pair it with boundaries and a refusal to trade your self-respect for approval. And you've built signals that don't flicker. If you're a woman bristling at Schopenhauer's austerity, you're not wrong. His blind spots are as obvious as his clarity. Keep the clarity. The body reads signals in a language older than speech. Add what he left out: the moral weight of reciprocity, the intelligence of compassion, the fact that in a world where you can finance your own safety, you're free to privilege character over clout. Read for integrity under performance. Notice who you become near someone, smaller or freer, or the fur, na, do, me, na, than they. The more of this, the more handas. Your nervous system's verdict is a better guide than your peers' applause. Rejection deserves a kinder translation. It's not a referendum on your essence. It's feedback on fit, timing, and signaling. Fit asks whether your values rhyme. Timing asks whether your seasons align. Signaling asks what your habits predict. Someone choosing elsewhere says as much about their weighting of those variables as it does about you. If the no hurts, and of course it does, let it teach without turning it into a story about your unworthiness. Return to the lab. Improve your signal. Keep your heart soft and your standards high, both at once. Humility keeps this conversation human. Models illuminate, people transcend. On paper, two lives fit like blueprints and then combust by spring. On paper, two messes should be a disaster, and then somehow they grow a garden. The moment you think you've cracked attraction like a code is the moment you stop paying attention to the person in front of you. Stay alert, stay curious, ask better questions than what do women want? Try. What conditions help us both become less afraid and more alive? Try. What would a Wednesday with you actually feel like? Try. Can we build something neither of us could build alone? If you insist on a single North Star, use this one. Context, capacity, character. Context asks where each of you is in your life and what safety and adventure mean right now. Capacity asks what you can truly offer, emotionally, materially, spiritually, without performance or overpromise. Character asks who you are when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one is watching. Context changes, capacity can grow. Character must be chosen. If the old will is the hum under the floorboards, these three decide whether the house on top becomes a home. Schopenhauer helps us stop being naive. He doesn't require us to become cruel. You can name the gears without sneering at the ribbons. You can acknowledge that nature wants tomorrow and still insist that your tomorrow be built with decency. Attraction is older than ethics. Love, properly understood, is ethics in motion. It asks, will I protect your dignity when I'm angry? Will I tell you the truth when lying would save face? Will I choose you again after a hard day when I'd rather be adored than known? Biology can't answer those questions. You can. So build a life that answers them in your favor. Anchor your health so aliveness has a home. Keep promises small and often so safety can breathe. Cultivate meaning so the story you offer isn't just a montage but a path. Then stop pitching your worth and let your days become the proof. If someone doesn't meet you there, you don't chase or punish. You keep building. You preserve your dignity and protect your hope. The two things that make tomorrow worth wanting. Archetypes, gold digger, libertine, innocent, are masks. Sometimes they're tactics, sometimes they're bruises, sometimes they're mislabels slapped on by people too lazy to understand. Use them only insofar as they help you set boundaries and extend compassion. Beyond that, retire them. Look for the person beneath the mask. Ask what they're trying to secure: safety, power, belonging, play. Ask what you're trying to secure. Then negotiate honestly, or walk away without dragging anyone through the mud. The most radical implication of all this is simple. Become a sanctuary that vibrates with life. People don't want castles if the rooms are cold. They don't want adventures with broken compasses. They don't want poems that collapse in daylight. They want a life that makes sense, to wake up inside. If Schopenhauer was right, that nature wants tomorrow, then your work is to build a tomorrow worth wanting. One honest enough that desire doesn't need to disguise itself to join you there. Look back at your recent chapters. Where were you truthful? Where were you performing? Where did fear choose your words? What did your calendar say you valued that your heart never signed? Edit that. Replace performance with presence, anxiety with practice, chasing with building. The moment you live like that, desire stops feeling like a casino and starts feeling like a bell you can hear from your own front porch. The people who hear the same bell will find you. Some will say this is too pragmatic, not romantic enough. Others will say it's too romantic, not pragmatic enough. Perhaps that's exactly where usefulness lives, between enchantment and engineering, between spark and scaffolding. Keep Schopenhauer's clarity. Add compassion. Keep your suspicion of fairy tales. Add the discipline of making something beautiful anyway. The species may have written the prologue. You are still writing the chapters. And if you still want a line to carry with you, carry this. Attraction begins in the body, but it survives in the calendar. Write days that you'd be proud to share. Write them when no one is watching. Write them when you're tired. Write them when you want to be admired more than you want to be honest. If someone joins you in those days, you'll know it wasn't because you gained a system. It will be because you became the kind of person with whom a good life becomes easier to build. So ask not which archetype is she. Ask what conditions am I creating. Ask what am I like to love on a Wednesday. Ask what part of me refuses to be purchased, and what part of me is still for sale. Ask what would it look like to be both soft and strong, both boundaried and warm, both ambitious and anchored. When you can answer those questions without flinching, the old argument about interest, innocence, or promiscuity loses its heat. Those are footnotes. Those are footnotes. The headline is simpler. Two human beings, meeting without masks, agreeing to become less afraid together. If yes, keep going. If no, leave with your dignity intact and your curiosity unbroken. Schopenhauer, across the centuries, would still hand you the ice bath. Love is a lure, biology is boss. Thank him for the cold water, it wakes you up. Then dry off and get to work. There is building to do of character, of context, of capacity. There are promises to keep that no philosopher can keep for you. There are mornings to write with someone who doesn't need to be dazzled to stay. That's the quiet truth beneath every clever theory. When the door closes and the day begins, brilliance matters less than kindness, charisma less than consistency, fireworks less than the steady warmth of a life that actually fits. What truly drives female desire? Aliveness, safety, story, weighted by context, revealed by signals, confirmed by character. The rest is commentary and cautionary tale. Learn from both. Then live in such a way that desire doesn't have to shout to be heard. It will recognize the shape of a life that can hold it. And it will come closer. Not because you pulled the right lever, but because you became the right place.